one reason why I should try playing. And inevitably, people piled on without actually explaining why anyone should. Now, I could cheat this answer and talk about how interesting the Yugi sphere is as a whole. You have your card collectors, you have your competitive players, you have your anime fans, and you have some weirder people like your investment bankers. But at the end of the day, there's so many ways to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! And so many ways to enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! But unfortunately for me, I can read a little bit into subtext, and this word right here, playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Is sort of a key word here. It seems like every complaint about Yu-Gi-Oh! Comes from the fact that it is not really an enjoyable experience to play. You have decks designed to lock you out of play, decks that take 80 years to play, and decks that take $800 to play. On top of that, all the online talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively boils down to problems in the ban list, terrible formats, and even the formats that are praised are constantly under scrutiny. It seems like the actual card game Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a lot of problems. But I do think for everything that Yu-Gi-Oh! Gets wrong, there is a counter side. There's gotta be a reason why people like me are still talking about it, right? Somebody's gotta be playing in these YCSs, right? If I had to convince you to play Yu-Gi-Oh! With just one argument, I would say that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the creative man's dream. At this point, I literally say this every video, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game with 11,000 cards, and pretty much all the problems with the game, and all the cool things about the game, stem from this one fact alone. I would argue that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is one of the biggest sandbox games out there. Most games have a pretty finite amount of things that you can do in them, right? Games like MOBAs have heroes and items that permutate the game into unique situations. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has almost 11,000 cards, and you can use each and every one of them in a game. There's no rotation here. We're playing with 2005 cards in 2024. Reading further into the subtext, I think one of the big mistakes with the term playing and getting into the card game Yu-Gi-Oh! Is thinking that you have to be some sort of competitive masterpiece wizard whenever you want to get into the game. The truth is, I'd argue, that the deck building creative side of things is actually where the average and majority of Yu-Gi-Oh! Players lie. When you look at the most successful series that populate your YouTube page, it's not typically your primers and how to build a deck properly and how to pilot this deck to the top of the ladder. It's usually series based around deck building and finding interesting ways to win through restrictions. You know, you have your hundreds of thousands of Masochist series, the OG Progression series, every sort of box opening series that includes things like Saga, and any sort of wheel series. These are the type of things that really get people interested in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not trying to min-max a deck with the optimal amount of hand traps so that you can properly lock out your opponent consistently. It's more of how many equip cards does it take to turn Garuzis into an ultimate machine of warfare. The sheer variety of decks and archetypes out there is actually mind-numbingly staggering. And not only in things like themes and art departments, there's a bunch of different decks to suit your playstyle, from decks that look to set 5 cards and pass, to decks that want to go through their whole deck before they pass. There are so many unexplored cards out there that even me, someone who spends a lot of time researching cards to, make a video, I still run into cards that I've never seen before pretty much on a daily basis. I mean, I made a video about an archetype called Super Robo Defenders. Let me check that. Super Defense Robots, which was this archetype that I found that pretty much has no digital footprint anyway, no Master Duel lists when I made that video back in the day. So if you want to become the trick guy, right? Be one dude who just puts Super Robo Defense cards into every single deck that you play, be my guest, you can be the first. Or if you want to be the guy who plays all the super meta decks for the sole purpose of turboing out Raw, go ahead. Or have someone else turbo out Raw for you. It's the same end goal, really. This sort of creativity also feeds into things like the replay meta nowadays, right? Everybody seems to be watching duel lives to see if they can scope out some crazy combos. I mean, I've done it too. I remember watching 2 Sword Soul players go at it. One guy playing a very traditional Sword Soul Tenuist, and this other Giga Chad playing raw Sword Souls. And I remember the Sword Soul purist using the level 6 guy, Chunjun, to just completely banish his Sword Soul half-breed Tenyi brother to the Shadow Realm. And honestly, I can't speak enough about how interesting the diversity of archetypes and cards is. And I'm not even just talking about the obvious stuff, like, to borrow the words of somebody, we got Freaky Fishmen, and Hot Mermaids, and Madolche, all in the same game. I remember when I was playing my comfort game, Genshin Impact, and I ran into a familiar face in Simmer. And I'm like, wait a second, I know you. You're the guy who posts Apex Avians and Floodgate barrier statues onto my board. Hopefully the Genshin team is a lot more sensible, and both those people don't exist in Genshin. But it was really cool to see the inspiration reflected in other media. I think it's easy to look at the competitive scene and get very upset between $1,000 decks and very homogenized deck lists, right? A lot of decks are starting to just play the same cards, a lot of tier 0 formats. But again, that's not where the heart of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. That's not what the average person who wants to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! Is really looking to do. And if there's one last point to make, it's that if you want to try Yu-Gi-Oh!, now is the time to try it. We have Master Duel, which is an extremely affordable way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! You can play anything from meta to your favorite Dark Magician deck for $0 on the dime. Like, Master Duel is probably the best way to learn the game at this point, between being cheap, affordable, having better text formats so you can actually read the cards properly. And the client itself is incredible. It's got incredible music, incredible animations, it got the slam effect, like, there's just so much to like about it. So while it is easy to look at Yu-Gi-Oh! And see the hot mess that it is, I do think that we really are selling ourselves short if we don't believe that there isn't a single thing that makes the game interesting for a new player. There is. And while I still believe that overall most of the people that do try Yu-Gi-Oh! Will probably find enough gripes to not get too into it, I do think it's worth trying. I have absolutely no qualms with recommending a game like Master Duel to try to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! If only to find the true savior of the super defense robots.
What can you expect me to see? I wanna just play more Yu-Gi-Oh! I wanna make that Labyrinth deck already. I don't think there's much I need to be doing here right now. You can tell my Yu-Gi-Oh! Brain is still fervently active. Yeah, I don't think I'm doing much today. I started the recording saying I would do something. Should I even record myself playing Genshin as well? I won't be able to fight the last boss in Broken Frontline until tomorrow. Good God, why am I such an insane person? Can I do my assignments yet? Why the fuck is LMS not working? I'll worry about it tomorrow. If it's still not working, then I'll have to go ask someone. Guess I won't be playing Minecraft. I think I'm just gonna be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For a while.